So speak life, when the sun won't shine and you don't know why. Look into the eyes of the broken hearted, watch them come alive as soon as you speak hope, you speak love, you speak life.
Hi and welcome to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, video producer and author of One Dog's Faith. I'm so glad you stopped in. We've got a great show in store for you. Today's program brought to you by Malone Dentistry. This is something we do every single week. We basically deal with life. We all have struggles. We all have challenges. We have people on this show, guests on this show, who have had the same, and they have found strength and guidance and hope through the love of Christ. I was talking to somebody the other day, somebody who wasn't necessarily close to faith, and they were questioning it, and the conversation basically went like this. They said, I'm a good person. I don't steal. I don't attempt to hurt people. I try to be nice. I don't lie. And what's wrong with that? I'm a good person, so good things should happen to me, right? And my conversation back to them was, there's going to be a day where that's not good enough. There's going to be a day where you're going to need more than that, where you're going to be in a desperate situation, and being nice doesn't cover it. Christ does. The most powerful force in the universe can be reachable. All you have to do is reach your hand out and trust and say, I need courage. I need strength to go through this. And being nice to people doesn't cover that. So consider it. Consider reaching out to Christ. Consider His amazing love. No matter where you are in life, you're loved and you are not hopeless. In the studio with me is Toby Wagner.
Hey, how you doing, Tom?
Great to see you. Thanks for stopping in and sharing. Toby has just an incredible story that we're going to peel back the layers of in the next hour. Toby, you are starting a new thing called the Recovery Trail. That's
exactly right. Trying to get some hope in Sevier County.
Yeah. And not only does Sevier County, everybody needs it, but that's a place where you have found that's in desperate need of what you're going to do. We're gonna unpack all of that here shortly, but I want to get to know you first. Right. Your story is quite powerful.
Yeah, it's quite a wild roller coaster. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you opened there with, I wish I could have found all of that peace and serenity about 20 years ago, but sometimes it takes what it takes to get where you're at.
Well, we humans tend to take the left turn way too often when the right turn is the path that leads to that serenity and joy. And God understands that. Mm-hmm. But and it's odd that you and I haven't met before because we have we've traveled some of the same circles.
Exactly.
Well, let's start. Where were you from?
Originally from Nashville, Tennessee. I was born and raised there. Lived there for 18 years of my life. Okay. Went to school there and then ended up coming up to UT is what brought me to East Tennessee.
Nice.
And that's stumbled through college a little bit. We'll get into that a little bit later, I'm sure.
Stumbled is a good way to describe it. Yeah, That's about what I did. Somehow I found a cap and gown when it was all done, but that was not the easiest road to take either.
Right.
So, you were in the ice skating world.
Yep. For a period after finishing college, and I say I finished college. I didn't graduate. They told me I was finished.
Okay. Son,
you're
finished.
After about 3 years, I was in the entertainment world a little bit and stumbled into an opportunity to go on the road with Walt Disney's World on Ice as a tour manager.
Man.
And so
that's the big time.
Yeah, 91 to 96, I toured over 36 different countries around the world.
Holy
In that 5 years, I only toured in the United States for 2 months, so I was overseas quite a bit.
Wow! Now, real quickly, what does that involve? What does that role involve?
Mainly, it was making sure that I had labor set up in each city that we were going to.
Okay.
we would tour with 8 to 10 technicians ourselves, but then we would hire local labor
Sure.
to supplement and help run the show. And so I was
And lift the equipment and load the equipment,
exactly.
hang, all that stuff.
So
yeah.
the timing of setting up the show and taking down the show and operating the show from a technical standpoint was mine. There was another person that took care of the performers that
Okay.
looked after the skaters. I'm not a skater by any means.
Gotcha. But that was the world that you got involved with.
Exactly.
Wow. And
Yeah.
that's big stuff.
Yeah, it was quite an adventure.
Yeah. And so what happened along the way? I know you met somebody in that process.
Yeah. My now ex-wife was a skater on the show, and we met and got married about in '95. We were still on the road, and we both kind of decided we were tired of living out of suitcases. She had visited on one of our breaks. She had visited East Tennessee and loved the mountains, so we decided to settle
You
back
said,
into.
yeah. Hey, I remember 3 years of that place.
Yeah. So we settled back into Seymour, Tennessee.
Nice.
And that's where we set up shop. I knew a lot of people back from the entertainment world. I knew there was a lot of theaters in Pigeon Forge that I could, probably get entertainment type work on. And
Yeah.
ended up working at Dollywood for several years. So
What'd you do at Dollywood?
I was a production manager. I was over all the sound and lighting technicians for all of their theaters.
Goodness.
Started out as a production supervisor, but then the gentleman above me had retired and left and moved
Sure.
up into the manager spot. So that was quite a juggle as well. They got quite a lot of entertainment going on up
Yeah,
there.
they got a few cogs moving all the time.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
and every season's a little different there too. Wow. So what happened after that?
Worked there for several years. Actually got promoted into a position that there was some new management came in. I got promoted into a position that after about 6 months, they decided that direction wasn't the way they wanted to go. So instead of just kind of pulling me back into the regular world that I was from, they laid me off. So I was laid off and said, "They're okay. What am I going to do?" But they gave me a nice severance package and everything. So I was set for a year to kind of follow my path and figure out what it was I really wanted to do.
All right, so we know a little bit about you and your job life, your vocation, but let's talk about what led to alcohol issues.
Well, I mean, like as I'd said, I was raised in Nashville. My mother was a devout Christian. She was Catholic. My first 4 years of schooling, I went to a private Catholic school.
Okay.
My father was an alcoholic, and during that time, my mother had always come to me and said, we need to just pray for your dad, pray for your dad, pray for your dad. And I would pray for my dad, and my dad never quit drinking.
Nothing changed. Yeah.
And
it's hard.
and at the time, I was young. I was hearing the message that God will do anything for you. All you have to do is ask. And I didn't understand the difference between things I wanted and things that I needed.
Yeah.
So I was praying for things that I wanted. I want to get an A on this test. God, please help me get an A on this test. And I wouldn't get the A on the test. And
No, it didn't matter that you didn't study or didn't
Exactly.
prepare. Or, yeah, it's
Exactly.
just God was going to have that A written on your test.
and
Yeah.
and it didn't happen. And other struggles with my father and stuff. I was beginning to doubt the whole situation
Yeah.
of God's existence. And
Sure.
and by the time I turned 16, I was really pulling away from and rebelling against any kind of religious
Sure.
organization at all. And still, to be honest, still had the thought in my mind that I might go to hell. So maybe my best theory is to just prove that this doesn't exist at all. That
Oh
way I
my,
wouldn't
okay.
have to worry about that.
Right, yeah,
So
just
I
to erase
started-
the possibility you might get judged.
Right.
Okay.
So I started to kind of go down the road of, okay, that's all just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. It's not for real. It's just a trick to try to make people do good and things like that. So I developed a lot of bad thoughts and a lot of bad habits. And
And that's easier than a lot of people think to go that way.
well, and I personally had a lot of insecurities myself. Didn't really realize it at the time. I just felt that I didn't fit in and things like that. But then, I discovered that when I had a few drinks, when you're not supposed to, that all of a sudden I was Superman and everything was okay, and I did fit in, and I could talk to people. And somebody had explained it once I got into recovery that it's kind of like when your hands are dirty and you wash your hands with soap and they come clean. Well, you learn to do it again. So when I drank, I became Superman.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do it again.
Yeah, inhibitions. Yeah.
Now, granted, at the time I wasn't every day sleeping in gutters or anything like that, but it was the beginning of the process.
The barriers go down.
That just, it slowly built over years. And by the time I got into college, that was, a little bit of an atmosphere that you're away from home for the first time, and you can, walk down to the strip and you can do these things and that thing. And so that wasn't really a good setting for me. I was losing control more. And, hence the reason I didn't finish college, or didn't graduate college and finish college.
Sure.
But then I kind of stumbled into the entertainment world, where I could work at some doing sound for some nightclubs in the old city at the time.
Yeah.
And it was okay to have a couple drinks while you were working. And I was kind of like, well, this
kind of fit right in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This must be my calling in life. I'm just going to be in the entertainment world. But I was still kind of raging and spending too much money on, other chemicals and alcohol.
Yeah.
And, but it was okay because I was in this bubble of people that were doing it as well.
Sure,
so
yeah.
I felt that it was normal. I had released the restraints of all this religious stuff, and I was free, but it was still, not happy. And then that's when I stumbled into the opportunity to take the tour. It kind of separated me some from that old crowd, but it was still, hey, now I'm in Europe. Let's try every single beer I can find in Europe,
A whole new world.
So the experience it just shifted. It didn't really get any better or worse, but it continued for sure.
Okay.
There was an atmosphere of after the shows, let's all go down to the hotel bar and drink, and we didn't have to go at work till 5 o'clock the next day. So waking up with a headache wasn't that big of a deal.
Sure.
You'll pull yourself out of it by then.
Oh, wow. That's a tough spot to be, because there wasn't a reason not to.
Right. So that kind of continued with me when I got off the road and settled in and got working up in Pigeon Forge. At first at a couple smaller theaters before I got the Dollywood job, because they didn't really have a position for me in the beginning. So again, I was in the entertainment atmosphere where everybody was, running out to the Ruby Tuesdays afterwards and so on and so forth.
Till 4 a.m, right?
Yeah.
Well, somewhere at 4 till 4 a.m.
And didn't get up. And then it got to Dollywood. And to be honest, at the time I was also doing a lot of marijuana maintenance, they could say, that I was trying to say, well, that's, it's a peaceful herb and there's spiritualness to it and crazy things like that. And
justification.
Right.
We try our best to do that.
But then Dollywood got to where they started doing some drug screening, and I had to stop that abruptly, and then I just had to turn up the alcohol notch a little bit more to
make up for it.
Wow,
that's hard.
Eventually, it became problematic in the relationship. My wife was, don't you think that's a little much that you're drinking? And I justified it. And I guess, looking all the way back, I was following my dad's role. My dad, he drank, but he always worked. And so I was going to work. I wasn't drinking at work. I was coming home and drinking when I got home. I wasn't going out to bars. I wasn't a bad guy, but I was drinking a significant amount.
Right. And
every night.
And inside you're going, okay, I'm not drinking at work, and either it could always be worse.
Right. I'm not an alcoholic. Those are people that have it in a brown paper bag and sit under a bridge.
Right.
But
well, it's we can justify, and we can tell ourselves, if I was worse, I'd have a problem, then I'd have to fix it. But yeah, that was taking you down a dark road.
Yeah.
Let's put a bookmark here, because I want to see where you went from there.
All right.
This is Dealing with Life. Toby Wagner of the Recovery Trail is in the studio with us today. To this segment, this show brought to you by Malone Dentistry. You know, there are plenty of things in this world to worry about, but one of the things I know you don't have to worry about is who to choose for dental care. For the last 20 years, I have been going to Malone Dentistry. Dr. Stephen Malone, who has become a personal friend, is somebody you can count on. They treat you like family when you go there. Honesty, experience, personal care, they're all important things, and you get that at Malone Dentistry. Dr. Malone and his staff of 15, along with his new associates, Dr. Aaron Noble and Dr. Michael Costa Jr., they work on creating a plan for your mouth with the goal to preserve your teeth for your lifetime. They do it all there. Comprehensive dental care. What you need to do is go to KnoxvilleSmiles.com and check out the raving reviews. Right off Kingston Pike on South Peters Road, it's Malone Dentistry. This is Dealing with Life. We've got more with Travis Wagner in just a minute. Listening to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, author of One Dog's Faith. That's a book about worry. It's a book about dealing with life through the innocent eyes of a dog. Dogs do things a little differently than we do. Dogs are usually happy, and they usually don't regret, and they usually don't worry. And I learned a lot about that, and it's written through the perspective of my silly mutt Mango, available through Amazon, available through BarnesandNoble.com, locally available through Farragut Pharmacy, Long's Drugstore, and some other fine establishments. In the studio with me today, this show brought to you today by Malone Dentistry, Toby Wagner is with us.
Good morning or afternoon.
Good day.
Good day.
Great to have you with us. Toby is starting in the process of building the recovery trail.
Exactly.
In Sevierville County. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. You're 401c3. You've got, it's going to be just to spoiler alert, basically,
mm-hmm.
is
yeah.
It's a halfway house.
Right.
That you're working on in Sevierville County.
Yes.
I just think that's incredible. We heard in the first segment about your struggle in dealing with alcohol, mm-hmm. and we kind of bookmarked where it was truly a struggle, mm-hmm. and was affecting your marriage.
Right.
So you decided to stop drinking. How?
Well, you know, as it had progressed, it had gotten to the point that I could look back and see that there wasn't a single day that had gone by that I didn't drink. Yeah. Even though I had justified that I'm still having my job, it's not that bad. I would get in panic modes looking at going out of town for business and saying, there's no hotel bar. What am I going to do?
You're planning all your whole trip around that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And where's the closest? I was literally Googling where the closest liquor store was and
wow.
could I get a cab to it? And because the thought of me going a day without alcohol was a panic.
Sure.
And so that kind of was a little bit of a trigger of maybe there's something wrong. But, you know, I was
handle it.
Full of myself.
Yeah.
I was full of my own will, and there was no God's will involved at this point. So I was running the show, and just as long as I Googled and found out where the liquor store, there's no problem, you know.
Okay.
But it had gotten to a serious quantity. I'd played games with myself of, well, when I get home at 5:30, maybe I'll just wait until 7:30 until I drink. Well, what happened is from 5:30 to 7:30, I was just so miserable and nobody wanted to be around me.
Yeah.
And then when 7:30 hit, I just drank twice as fast. But I mean, it was up to the quantity. I'm not sure what they call it, maybe a gallon. But I was going through a gallon of liquor every 2 days.
Goodness.
And so, sitting back watching news channels screaming at it on how stupid they were, and if they would just listen to me, everything would be okay.
Oh, of
I
course.
thought I had the answer for everything.
Yeah.
So when it came time that I did think that maybe I need to find a way out of this, it was a lot of it was to my wife will quit griping at me if I quit drinking. So if I quit drinking, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
So I started Googling around. I found that if you stop abruptly, there could be some serious medical complications. So I might need to do a medical detox. So I've found some treatment facilities and looked at their different programs and found one that offered a 5-day detox. Then they would be a 90 days of intensive outpatient program, they called it. Which
so
meant,
it wasn't a big, huge time commitment.
Right. I wasn't going to be, sent off to Arizona for 6 months or anything like that.
Right.
So,
and all in the case of getting your wife to quit griping.
Right. And this way I could just take some vacation time. I wouldn't have to tell work. And then the IOP, as they called it, was in the evening. So 4 nights a week I would go for this 3-hour group session. And then the other 3 nights a week, they required me to go to a 12-step fellowship and get a paper signed to make sure that I was doing this.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'll sign up for this one because a 5-day detox, and then after that, I'll just tell them to go jump in the lake because I'll have it figured out by then.
I'm in control here.
And so after as I shopped around, I even went and interviewed these places. I'm like, yeah, I have a drinking problem, but I'm just seeing if you're the right fit for me.
If you're good enough for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Wow.
But so I did finally go into February 26th of 2010. That's my sobriety date. And I walked into a facility, spent the 4 or 5 days detox, and went over to my first IOP.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'll stick around for this for a little bit just because it'll be interesting to see what these other
see
crazy...
what they're all about, yeah.
And so I did maybe a week's worth of that. And judging every single bit of it, saying how stupid it was, this is ridiculous, I'm not as bad as them.
Sure.
And not trying to do anything that they were suggesting.
Yeah, not taking it serious. Yeah.
Because I hadn't drank in 2 weeks now, so I'm in control of everything.
Yeah, I can handle this.
So I went to my counselor and told her that I'm not going to be coming back. And she says, well, you aren't court ordered or anything. You don't have to, but, you will not have completed the program, so your insurance isn't going to pay for it. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Ooh.
So I said, I don't want to pay for this. So out of greed, I continued through this because I thought I had it licked. I don't need all this long-term mumbo jumbo. I don't need to be part of a recovery fellowship for the rest of my life. I just need to read the book, figure it out, and do it.
Yeah.
Well, part of the program was, in trying to get you to find, God, and in the 12 steps. And I didn't want to have anything to do with that part either. I was just going to skip that part. It was just like, when we used to put together a bicycle and you didn't really follow the instructions and somehow you ended up with some extra parts. I mean, I was only going to do some of the instructions and not all of it.
But it probably will still ride.
Yeah. And
probably.
Again, my own reasoning was completely flawed in hindsight, but it was what it was. And
but you were totally intent at the time.
So in that 90-day period, I continued to go to all this stuff, and I continued to listen, and I started getting jealous of why these people were so happy. I'm like, it's been 70 days since I've drank, and I am restless, irritable, and discontent. I hate life. And
it's not what you planned.
Why are these people so happy? My wife still gripes at me. That didn't fix that. This and that and the other. What is the deal? And the fellowship that I had come into gave me a pretty broad road of this, God of my own understanding and this higher power. Because people in the past had seen that I had a problem, and they had come to me and said, do you know Jesus? And I was like, oh, get away from me. And I didn't think there was any type of solution in any type of spiritual realm.
Okay.
But I saw that they gave me this really broad road, and I'm like, well, okay, maybe. They weren't forcing me on anything. They're like, it's up to you. You want to be happy? You want to be miserable? It's your choice.
Okay.
And I'm like, a lot of times the religion had tried to force things on me.
Yeah,
and I'm like stepping back going,
That just
I'm
makes
not
me
used,
more mad.
I'm not used to this giving me my own permission to create my own God. I mean, that sounds kind of weird, but it's the ability to let you find your own journey, and it eventually funnels into, the God that we know now.
Yeah.
But I needed that broad road
You
because
needed a starting point.
if they told me I had to do it this way, pointing a finger at an alcoholic and telling them they have to do something is not
No.
not
That's
not
very,
work out
very
well.
usually unsuccessful.
Right.
So then, finding that there was possibly, maybe a higher power, what did that do for you?
Well, the climax to it kind of came to there was a recovery camp out, and I'd spent all this time, and it was happening like 2 days after my 90 days. And I'd spent all this time, and my kids like camping, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll go to this recovery camp out. And I went, and so I could have some time with my kids. And I sat by the fire one night, the first night, and I was seeing all these people. There's 60, 70 other recovering alcoholics, addicts that were having fun for more than just an hour at a time. And I'm like, what is it?
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe it is this God thing. Maybe it is. And so that night, the first night I was there, I sat by the campfire, and the only real prayer I knew was the Serenity Prayer. And
Because you pretty much do that at every meeting.
Right. So it's the only thing I knew.
Okay.
And so I played one of my tricks that I'd played with God all along, and I'm like, okay, God, you need to prove yourself to me. This smoke is blowing in my face. I'm going to say this Serenity Prayer, and when I'm done, the smoke's going to move, and I will believe.
Yeah.
And, well, I finished the prayer.
Only if.
I finished the prayer, and the smoke didn't move. And so I'm like, see, there
See?
you go. It doesn't exist. But then I thought about this Serenity Prayer that I just said, and the the courage to change the things I can. I'm like, well, I can move my chair. I can take some action in this.
I might have a little responsibility
I
here.
can't just wait for magic to happen. I've got to take some accountability myself.
Yeah.
And not just bestow a white light on me. So that night after that, and kind of coming to that realization, I kind of got some cold chills and kind of was like, wait a minute. And for the first time, I got on my knees on an air mattress in a campground and said the Serenity Prayer again, because it's the only thing I knew.
Yeah.
And I woke up the next day, and I started feeling it. And it was something I wanted more of. I didn't know what it was, but it was the beginning.
Describe a little bit about what you think you felt.
The greens were greener, the blues were bluer.
Yeah.
There was some happiness. There was some, I was a part of something. It was a part of a bunch of other recovering alcoholics, addicts, but they had been there with me. They knew what I'd been through, and they had found hope, and I think I might have just found some too. And
at least a taste of it.
It was the beginning, and I truly, truly loved the rest of that weekend, and then it got a little crazy after that.
So you went from, what are these people doing, and why are they so stinking happy?
And thinking that maybe it might have something to do with this God thing.
Yeah.
And I'll give it a little try. And then he still didn't play the magic trick for me, but he gave me the sense to realize that I have to take some action too.
Yeah.
And,
but when you do,
he's right there beside you.
Oh, how incredible. Toby Wagner, what a great story. And we're not done yet, because but that's led you down other incredible paths.
Right.
You are starting the recovery trail.
Right.
In Sevier County, which is kind of a halfway house. And that's where we're going in just a second.
Right.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this.
No problem.
This is Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker. Today's show brought to you by Malone Dentistry. I'm a coward. I admit it. I don't like to go to the dentist. But the one thing I do not want to deal with is a dentist who is not honest or has my pocketbook at the forefront of their thoughts. Dr. Stephen Malone at Malone Dentistry, who I've been going to for 20 years, ever since they opened their practice, is just exactly what I needed. I needed honesty, experience, personal care, and also the kid glove approach. Family and restorative dentistry. That's what you get there. Whatever you might need, a smile makeover, whole mouth rehabilitation, crown and bridge, restorative procedures, cosmetic treatment, or a teeth cleaning. All of that. They do it at Dr. Stephen Malone's office. He and his team of 15 provide comprehensive oral care. They create a plan for your mouth with the single goal of minimizing extensive dentistry later. KnoxvilleSmiles.com. They're right off of Kingston Pike on South Peters Road, Malone Dentistry. This is Dealing with Life. We've got more of Travis Wagner's incredible story in just minutes.
It's easy to sing when there's nothing to bring me down. But what will I say when I'm held to the flame like I am right now? And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again.
You are listening to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, author of One Dog's Faith. Today's show brought to you by Malone Dentistry. In the studio today with us is Toby Wagner of the Recovery Trail. And we're going to uncover what the Recovery Trail is, but basically it's a halfway house that you're starting.
Correct.
In Sevier County. You left us a minute ago. You were around a campfire. Mm-hmm. You've been struggling with alcohol and addiction for a while, mm-hmm. and reaching out to God was one of your last thoughts. But around a campfire at a recovery campout,
right,
you found the peace of God.
Right.
Now, that wasn't the end of the story.
No, not particularly. I was following a recovery model that it has 12 steps, and I looked at it as check marks. And come around step 3 that we're supposed to surrender and give our will and our life over to God. Well, I thought I did that night at the camp.
Check.
I'm done. And so the rest of the weekend was fabulous because I was still, wrapped up in all the recovery people and excited about it. But then I get back to my normal life and I'm going through the process, still going to recovery meetings, had found that I do need this recovery, family to keep me from being crazy.
It became a little more important.
Right. And but then after a couple weeks, I was back kind of in the dumps, and somebody after a meeting asked me how I was doing, and I says, well, to be honest, I was on cloud 9 a couple weeks ago at the camp out, but I'm miserable again. What's up? He goes, well, did you pray today? And I says, well, no, I did that a couple weeks ago.
Right. I checked that one off a long time ago.
And he's like, no, you got to do it every day. He says, we're promised that we'll comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. But he says it doesn't mean we're going to have it all the time. He says, you got to continue to seek God. He says, when you were drinking, did you seek drinking every day? And I said, yeah. And he says, well, that was your higher power. That was your God. He says, you got to seek God every day. And putting it in that model of comparing it to how I was seeking alcohol, I was like,
what an eye-opener.
Wow, okay. And so I started trying to pray and meditate a little bit more every day. And it did get better, but this was still, I've been sober over 8 years, and this was still my baby steps. At the time I was only 4 or 5 months sober, and I was still, a bit crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was still going through the process, as we say, and discovering more and more as I go, and learning that I needed to pray every day. But I wasn't ready to give God my life. I was giving him my alcohol.
You gave
problem.
him your alcohol. Gotcha. And,
gotcha. And so I was still managing.
Is that not enough?
I was still managing my life. I'm a smart guy. I have manager on my name tag.
Right.
So therefore, I don't need God for that. I mean, I wasn't mindfully saying that, but in
looking
hindsight,
back on it, sure.
I was not seeking God's guidance in everything that I do. I
was just helping you with the alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
The real struggle.
So that obviously made for some bumpy roads along the way. And, but I managed to stay sober, and because I knew that as long as I'm not drinking, I had a chance. If I started drinking, I was going to throw everything out the window,
Right.
and it was going to be back to square one.
Which is a good motivator, but that doesn't complete the
It
picture.
kept me sober, but
Yeah.
it didn't keep me, as we call it, emotionally sober.
Okay.
So 4 or 5 years into sobriety, I decided to seek some outside help, and started going to a private counselor. And they took me through a process. They had been in recovery as well, so they kind of understood my struggle.
Sure.
And they knew how I thought.
Which I'm sure was an eye opener for you. It's like, wait,
From
what?
their own experience,
Yeah.
And so she says, well, let's talk about what's your true core values. I'm like, well, I have values. That's a good thing. You're supposed to have values, right? And she goes, well, what are they? I'm like, well, I don't know. And she gave me a list of like 40 words. And she says, by next week, I want you to come back and pray about it.
Yeah.
And figure out what your top 2 values on this list are. And I came back, and it was through some true soul searching and through true conversations with God. It's like, I want to be all of these, God. But
Sure.
she's saying I got to be just 2. But it
That was some real thought.
it bubbled to the top that the 2 words on there was love and service that I'm most identified with.
Why?
And why?
Yeah.
Because I feel that God is love, and through love there is God, and that is all encompassing.
Sure.
And so
love changes everything when
Right.
when you actually know you're loved.
Yeah, I mean, even the Beatles, all we need is love. I mean,
Right.
And of service, an early sponsor had gotten me to go to every Wednesday night. I take a recovery meeting into the Sevierville County jails, and that does so much for me, because no matter what my problem I might have had today, when I go in there and help those other people, and I walk out and I try to share with them that there is hope and there is a way out when they're ready, I come back out feeling I don't have anything to worry about. I'm not wearing stripes. They let me back out of there after an hour.
Yeah.
I don't
You're
have-
not. There's a wall that they cannot pass.
And so I don't have anything to complain about. So helping others, it became apparent that when I'm helping somebody else, I'm out of myself.
Right.
And when I'm in myself is when I become selfish, and when my ego becomes inflated, and a lot of times,
and you're not happy
exactly
half
and
the time. Yeah.
we have a little thing saying ego stands for edging God out. And
so true.
And so whenever I'm inflating myself, I don't need God. But as long as I can keep myself humble and right sized, I kind of stay on a really good path in His flow as opposed to mine.
Pride is a disease that everyone else knows you have except you.
Right.
Right. So what did that lead to?
Well, that I was I'd gotten another job, and I wasn't very happy in it. It paid the bills. I was grateful for it.
Yeah.
I remained to know that I'd learned that gratitude is the antidote for almost everything.
Sure.
And so I was being grateful for it, but I hated it. And I started saying, well, how is it, people talk about doing something that they love for a living, and it's not work anymore. And I'm like, I need to find that.
This is not that.
I need to find that. And so after still going to the jail meetings and seeing that a lot of these people don't have a place to go to when they get out of jail, they're like, I want to do better. But the only place, when I get out, I got to go back and live with my baby mama who's still shooting heroin.
So it's right back in the same environment.
So I'm like, I wonder if there's a halfway house in Sevierville County. And because I was going to start directing them to that,
Sure.
And come to find out there wasn't. And I'm
So
like,
you couldn't
wow.
direct them anywhere.
Right. And so maybe that would be awesome. If I could talk recovery with people all the time, that would be heaven. That would be awesome. If I could love and serve people every day, that would be incredible.
God could use your bad choices and turn it into a beautiful thing.
Right. And I can, what's so great about alcoholics working together is I can say me too,
Yeah.
There's a little a little joke that goes around that, we dig ourselves into this really deep, dark hole, and a doctor walks by and says, "Oh, you're in a hole," and they throw your prescription. And a priest might walk by and says, "Oh, you're in a hole. I'll pray for you." And then a recovering person comes by and they jump in the hole with them, and they're like, "What are you going to do?" He says, "I know the way out."
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And the way out is through God, but the way out is easing them that way, and not.
Well, somebody struggling will not usually listen to somebody say, "Yeah, I feel you. I feel your pain." But when somebody says, "No, I've been exactly where you are."
And there is hope.
Yeah, and there really is. And look at me, I'm smiling. Mm-hmm. And then they do listen.
Exactly.
That's so powerful. So that's where the recovery trail.
Yeah, we there's my recovery family, a bunch of us are passionate about it, and we formed a board, and we looked up all the procedures to form a 501c3, and we jumped through all the hoops, and have been talking to other halfway houses and other recovery models in the area, and trying to see what we liked and don't liked, and there's a whole broad spectrum of what a halfway house is.
Well, yeah, it can have a negative.
It does. I mean, and a lot of times when we're talking to people, we're trying to provide a transitional sober living to try to give it a different kind of vibe. But sometimes, and they mean well, but sometimes it's a halfway house is let's put 20 guys in one house so that the little $100 that they can pay, adds up to where it pays for the house and pays for the rent. But there's not a lot of accountability. There's not a lot of structure. There's not a lot of continued recovery or counseling. And so they force them to get a job, and they go out and get a job at a local fast food place, and they're working right next to an active user, and it just goes down. Again. So we're trying to provide a place that has some accountability, where we don't accept insurance because we want them to feel that they're taking care of themselves. They're actually
doing it,
for the first time.
Yeah.
And that empowerment is truly part of the healing process. And showing that they can take care of themselves. And we're working with employers in the area. There's a lot of jobs available in Sevier County, and they're desperately needing people to work. And we're working, trying to find them safe working environments that they're not going to be right up against another active addict, and then providing them with some professional counseling, as well as making them go to a number of 12-step type meetings a week. They can use church as one of their 12-step meetings if they choose to. Okay. We're not going to force them to go to church, because we've all learned that we needed to let that evolve ourselves.
Yes, it's got to be a choice.
And it will. I mean, I know one of the guys that was my mentor when I first got there, because he's the one that didn't force God on me, and he had been sober for 40 years. And then 2 years ago, he gets baptized. And so you never know where it's going to go.
No.
So it's just letting it happen in God's time.
Yeah.
And
but being a light for them.
And as long as they know that there is a God, and you need to start accepting that, and your life will be a little bit better, they'll get that weekend that I had of, wow, this is awesome, but how do I keep it? You got to continue to follow God.
Sure. Incredible. So that's called the recovery trail.
Right.
And you are actively trying to put it all together.
Yes, sir.
We're going to, in just a second, we're going to find out how people can help you, because I know you're looking for help. Mm-hmm. And it's such a wonderful idea. Mm-hmm. And so absolutely, it's not existent in Sevier County.
Right.
Incredible. Travis Wagner of the Recovery Trail. This is Dealing with Life. Today's show brought to you by Malone Dentistry. We'll deal with more in just a second.
When I'm back on my feet again, I walk proud down the street again. I wanna be different, I wanna be changed, till all of me is gone, and all that remains is a fire so bright the whole world can see that
There's something different, so come and be different in me.
You're listening to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, author of One Dog's Faith. We have been talking with Toby Wagner, who is trailblazing the Recovery Trail, which is a halfway house that you're working on building and setting up and putting all together in Sevier County. And thank you so much for sharing all that.
Glad to be here.
You've struggled with alcohol for a long time. What would you, and you've been sober for 8 years, you said, what would you now say to your former self?
To quit trying to run the whole show yourself. You know, I was running on my will. I'd given up on any need for God, and my will doesn't work. I need God's will. And it was through my recovery journey that I slowly accepted that God was the solution, and God, as long as I let him drive the bus, when I drive the bus, we go off in the ditch.
Hit the ditch.
And I can still try to drive the bus every now and then. But fortunately, I've seen enough blessings that when I get into those bumpy spots, I'm like, oh, there I go again. I'm trying to drive the bus.
It's me.
But if I let God drive the bus, there's a beautiful scenery I can look out the window and enjoy every day.
And you're a classic example, and I feel like I am too, that it's not overnight.
No.
Yes, when you pray and actually realize Jesus is alive and Jesus can help you, there is a peace. But that isn't always just a straight path from there. You've got a journey.
Yeah. Like I said, I gave alcohol to God in the beginning, not my life. And he helped with alcohol. But he's like, well, go ahead, keep on trying to run your finances. See how that works out for you.
Right.
And eventually I gave that to him as well.
And he's going, I'm here,
right,
and I will help you, but you got to reach out.
You got to want it. And that's a big thing, because I'd hate for any listener to think that I have some magic wand on how I'm going to fix somebody. I don't. The people need to want help. I didn't want to stop drinking. I didn't seek God. I didn't seek help. I didn't seek anything. I was just drinking. I can even look back at why my father never stopped drinking. He died an alcoholic, but I prayed for him. It didn't work in my mind, but it didn't work because he never he
didn't want it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I can't swoop in and fix everybody struggling with alcohol and addiction, but those that are done and are ready to ask for help, I can tell them what I did, and
you can surround them with godly people,
like-minded people,
like-minded people who lived that life
exactly
and climbed out.
Right.
That's incredible. So that's what the Recovery Trail is about. You and friends of yours have gotten together, gotten a 501c3 nonprofit.
Right. And
the Recovery Trail is intended to be a halfway house in Sevier County, which there is none.
Right. And so, I mean, there's opportunities to help is sheer financial. The services we're going to provide are going to exceed the amount that we're going to require the guys to pay.
Yeah, because you're not going to accept insurance.
Right. And so the balance is not there. It's not a for-profit thing. It is a non-profit.
Right.
And so we're going to need financial assistance. If by some, grace of God that there is, I know Aunt Susie's brother-in-law's sister Bob has a house that they don't use anymore, and they are always wanted to help this type of ministry. Who knows? Maybe a house will fall out of the sky, and that'll be a great blessing from God. But
it's an uphill battle.
You never know.
Yeah.
We do have a few hot leads, some really hopeful locations. But I'm just letting God drive and trying to be patient. That's a hard thing.
It's
to do
a hard
sometimes.
thing, but what we're trying to pull over here, what we're trying to convey here, is you're looking for help.
Right.
You're looking, and if God's calling on someone's heart, you're listening today. God's calling on your heart to help, because you've seen that treatment through Christ's love and through other recovering addicts and alcoholics can help.
Right.
Especially for people coming out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And that's truly what a halfway house is, right?
Yeah, I mean, they do. We can accept people coming out of a treatment center that are still a little scared to go back all the way into society. We can take those and help nurture them halfway into society.
Right. Okay. And that's a powerful thing
Mm-hmm.
because that's a lot where people fall
Mm-hmm.
is they jump right back into the environment that they were in before.
Mm-hmm.
And this can help. It's called the Recovery Trail. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, we have a website. It's www.recoverytrail.org.
Okay.
You can contact me directly. My number is 865-654-3884.
654-3884.
That's correct.
Okay.
And there's a donate button on the website. There's some more things about the principles, a little bit more of my story and how this evolved. I'm starting a blog on there that's also going to have stories, continuing stories about what happened to me through recovery and how I got to this spot of wanting to help others.
Nice. Toby Wagner, The Recovery Trail.
Thank
Once
you
again, the website.
www.recoverytrail.org.
Perfect. If you're called to help, if Jesus is touching your heart with helping this amazing cause out, then reach out because it's really powerful. Toby Wagner, once again, thank you.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you
been
very much, Tom.
wonderful hearing your story and where you're taking
I appreciate
all
it.
this and where God's taking all
Yeah,
of this.
exactly. Not me.
Yeah. Dealing with Life. Today's sponsored by Malone Dentistry. I'm Tom Baker, and next week we'll do it again. We'll deal with more.
You speak